What's up, people? I am. Hold on, let me rearrange that. This is gonna be a different angle. So unfortunately, stage light broke. Um, hold on. So today I am gonna be reviewing Ballerina. This is my quick thoughts on the movie. Ballerina was decent. I think the problem was it came out in an era where a lot of people are just gonna say, and I'm not calling Eve a girl boss, but people are tired of the girl boss trope. I think that's just what it is. People are tired of it, and it's showing that because it's not doing well in theaters. Unfortunately, it's not really gonna make its money back. There's just no interest. I don't even think there's really any interest in people talking about it. To be honest with you. And I thought, like I said, I love the action. There's a cool flamethrower scene. I really love that the movie really hammers the point home that there is a difference between men and women, and that you, as a woman, like they really hammered home with Eve, you have to cheat. Fight like a girl basically means you gotta cheat. You gotta go for the nuts. You gotta use your environment, use your weapons, rely on your weapons. And that's what she does in this movie. Like, it's a theme. So they really wanted to hammer that home, which is nice to see compared to a lot of these other movies where they don't even do that. But I think it's just a case of it came out at the wrong time. Also, let's be honest, it doesn't help releasing this movie after Mission Impossible, like 2 weeks later. Like, let's be honest, Mission Impossible, releasing this right after Mission Impossible is not a good idea. You should have tried to get this out before. I think maybe if you had released this movie in January, February. I don't know, January is usually not a good month, but there's been some years where there's actually been some good stuff released in January. So maybe you should have just tried to get this out in January or February or even March, because there really wasn't much competition. But releasing it right after Mission Impossible was not a good idea. It just wasn't. Like, the amount of people that were just gonna go see Mission Impossible instead, it just. And yeah, John Wick's in the movie. He comes in towards the end because he's. So basically, I'm not going to really harp on the story because the story is the weakest part. So basically, Eve wants. The movie opens up. You see her father. You do see her father, who's also an assassin, get killed. And we find out by Gabriel Byrne's character, who. If I had. There's a couple negatives. This is one. They very much wasted Gabriel, but not Gary. Gabriel Byrne. I think they wasted him in this movie. Because I have seen him in other movies be a really good villain, and in this, he's just, He's a leader of this assassin cult that lives basically in this village that's full of assassins. I love the idea of it. That's where the final act basically takes place. Is this? I think it's a German town, and she wants to get revenge for her father, who's also an assassin, by the way. Who, I'll admit, that opening scene where you see him do his shit before, obviously, trying to protect his daughter and all that, that was well done. And then you meet Winston, who takes her to the ballerina program, and that's where you see her train. Which I love that the movie really hammers home that there is a difference between men and women, and that you have to fight like a girl, i.e., you have to cheat. You have to cheat to win. You can't just straight up strong arm the man. And I will say this: the movie doesn't say that, and then there's a scene where she's throwing around. No, she gets fucked up in a lot of these fights. She takes a lot of damage. Granted, you could say the stupidity, or not stupidity, but a little bit of the criticism. There's some guys who clearly they have guns, but for whatever reason they decide, oh, I'm gonna use a knife now. I'm like, you had a gun though, and there are moments where they could have killed her too, but whatever. That's just general action movie plot armor. That's gonna be there. I do like that they do respect John Wick. Like, when he arrives, he is treated as a legend. There's not a moment where they have her best, and no, she gets her ass whooped by John. She basically has to beg him to let her finish her mission, and he basically says, "I'll give you till midnight, and then I have to do what I got to do." So I do like that. The timeline wise, it does not make sense because this is technically supposed to be set between John Wick 3 and 4. But the way it's, I think I've also saw somewhere that this is set during John Wick 3. So why? How is John here? How did he get to this island? If you remember in John Wick 3, he's being. This is when he's full on excommunicado by now. Um, so I thought Anna de Armas did a decent enough job. I do think they could have given her more to do. I think they should have had her lean more into the sexy a bit. There is some scenes they do that. Like there's a scene where she goes to a club, they have her look attractive. One of my point is do the Black Widow thing. Like, and that's what I was kind of hoping this movie was gonna be. In a way, it was gonna be like the Black Widow movie we never got. Because she should have used her looks more to get some of these kills, and I think that should have also been a theme. Um I don't love that Norman Reedus was wasted. I don't even remember his character's name. He was someone she was supposed to kill, but they end up working together, and then he gets turned on, and I think he gets killed within like 5 minutes. I thought that was a waste, to be honest. Like I really wanted more from his character. Um, like the plot, like, and then we get a reveal later, like the lady that was working with Gabriel Byrne's character. We find out apparently that was her sister that was in on the plan. It was stupid. Like her older, it was dumb. Why did you write that in the movie? The moment where she confronts her, that should have just been a fight. You could have just had that be a cool fight scene. But no, you had it try. You try to do this random sister reveal, which it just made no sense. It's out of nowhere and it doesn't lead anywhere because after that the Burns people go in and basically shoot up the building, which ends up killing the sister. So she just dies anyway after a little bit after the reveal. So what was the fucking point? Like why was that there? It was. I think that's the problem with the movie is a lot of the through line. That's why I can't really give it anything higher than I'll still give it a 7 because the action carries it. There's a lot of fun action set pieces, and I like that this is one of those because I have no problem with female led action films if you acknowledge the differences. The only time I'm okay with a woman straight up throwing around dudes if you got like a Rhea Ripley or someone like that who like looks like they could fuck up a bunch of guys, or Gina Carano, then it's like all right, I'm okay with her more hand to handing, but there's nothing wrong with leaning to using weapons. Like, I even say with men, I have this problem where it's like Hollywood's scared to just show people get shot. I don't know if it's because the mass shooting thing that's happening in real life, so they're like, oh, we don't want to show people a bunch of people just get shot, so we have to find other ways for them to get taken down. So we have to always do hand to hand. But there's times I'm like, it doesn't make sense to do hand to hand if you have a fucking gun. I'm just gonna say it. Hand to hand, most of the time, should be a last resort thing, unless you know you're that good. Like the raid, right? There's a moment where they're kind of forced to go hand to hand because a lot of them they use a lot of their bullets and a lot of their fellow officers were killed, so only a couple of them really had guns. So it made sense in that movie why they had to go hand to hand. But I generally prefer if you have a gun, just shoot it. I don't understand, like, I have a gun, but I'm going to not use my gun, or I'm going to drop it and go hand in hand. It doesn't make sense. It's like, it's almost contrived reasons that you have to go hand in hand. So I like that this movie didn't do that. I liked some of the set pieces, just like the general set pieces. You could tell definitely that there was a lot of reshoots. Apparently there were a lot of reshoots that Chad Stahelski had to come back and do some reshoots because Les Weissman, who did it's weird because I actually like the Underworld movie because he made those movies, but for whatever reason the nigga can't do action. Sorry, I don't know why that came out like that, but the dude can't do action movies anymore. I don't understand. Like what happened? He used to be able to do like Underworld had some of my favorite, like, it weren't crazy action set pieces, but they were good. And if you're wondering why I'm sitting like this, I'm trying to block the light that's coming through. So But yeah, I overall thought this movie was all right. It is definitely carried by the action, and if I were to say this, you either if you want to go to the theater and support it, which a lot of people aren't, but if you want to go to like a matinee, I would say I wouldn't say you need to go see this in the theater. Like personally, I'm fine that I didn't see it in theaters because I'm gonna be honest. It's not worth seeing in theaters, in my opinion. You could easily just wait, which I think a lot of people are probably just gonna do. They're gonna wait till it goes to streaming, like it goes to like on some streaming service. And I have a feeling it's gonna be on streaming quick because it's most of the time if a movie isn't doing great in the theater, it really speeds up a lot of times how quick it's going to be on a service. So it should be on a service pretty quick. So whenever it goes digital, there'll be a really good copy of it on the seas at that point, and I would just say watch it there. Because I'm not saying it's good. I'm like I may have to change my rating because I can't objectively give it a 7 and still be like, you know what, you should just wait till it goes on the seas. That's almost not a that doesn't compute. So I have to push it down to a 6.5 because the plot and normally like with action movies, I'm not like uber about the plot, but I do think for this movie, like the plot was just it was very all over the place. There was just moments where you could clearly tell they were just setting up for action scenes. There's nothing wrong with that, but I want somewhat of a plot, and outside of she just wants revenge, and that's like my issue. It's a boring, not boring, but it's a very by the numbers revenge story. There's nothing unique about it, and I almost think that's to its detriment because you already. It's funny enough because you're doing a spin off of this world, but it's John Wick. John Wick showed you how to is a unique take on a revenge story. Because it seemingly is about his dog, but it's actually more than the dog. But just on paper, it's about the dog, and he wants to get revenge. That's something different, you know. But this is just her dad died, and I almost feel like her revenge for her father, isn't the theme fully because it's like he barely is mentioned. It gets to a point. It's more just it's just Anna de Armas killing people. So it's about let's get her to the next action scene, which that part's fine. And the scene where she goes to the gun shop, and that's when Burns people invade, and we get this cool action set piece. And I think this is where we get the a really cool grenade scene. So there's some cool scenes in the movie, but I felt like the plot was just too thin to where I have to kind of pull it down to a 6.5. And if I'm gonna tell you guys like, oh, you probably should just wait till streaming or wait till it's on the seas, or if you're gonna go to the theater do a matinee, I'd rather if I'm gonna give something 7 or higher, I feel like it means I almost recommend you go to the theater and see it to a degree. Even a 7, there's a degree of yeah, I think you should see it in theaters. Like for example, Bring Her Back, which I'm gonna review tomorrow. I'm gunning to do it tomorrow because I'm gonna watch it again tomorrow. I wanted to do it earlier in the week, but I just couldn't. But we'll do Bring Her Back. I'll just say this week. I'm gonna try to do it tomorrow though. If not tomorrow, at least Thursday. But I'm a gun for tomorrow. And I plan on watching it again. That's one I'm like go to the theater for that. I already went to the theater the first time, so I don't think it's gonna be a big deal if I see it on the seas now. But I definitely recommend you go to the theater for it, especially if you really like good horror, just to support good horror. Because even if I see it again, I'm probably gonna try to make it to the theater at least one more time just because how good it was. I did that with Final Destination. So if I give something a 7 or higher, I feel like I have to be like, yeah, you should go to the theater. This one, I'm like, I don't think you need to. And I think that's what hurt it. And fundamentally, maybe this should have been a streaming series, or if you're gonna have this be a movie, you can still put a little bit of the budget, but this should have been a streaming series or a streaming movie. Like, you could have put this on, like, Paramount, or try to make a deal with Amazon, or even Max or something, or Peacock, one of those, Hulu, one of those, like one of the streaming services. You should have tried to make a deal with and put it there, because And then apparently this movie was 90 million. Why is this $90 million? Why? Why? That's not as bad as I guess. Like it's nowhere near. It's not in the 100 million range, but I still think 90 million is too much. This movie you could have did for 50, 70 million if you want to go a little bit up. But 70 million I even think is pushing. And I really think you could have did this for 50, 40 million. And maybe you should have just made this a series, and I think it would have did better, or you just put this movie on streaming, because I think releasing this and having the budget be 90 million, and you expect a big return is kind of wild. And then releasing it after Mission Impossible was a bad idea. I'm sorry, it just was. Because, yeah, the only difference is this one's more R rated, and Mission Impossible is like more of a PG-13 action flick. Doesn't change the fact that it's still going to have the same audience relatively, because they're both action movies. Big action set pieces, just this one's going to have a bit more blood and violence. But outside of that, they're both big action set pieces, relatively, and people are going to go, I haven't, to be fair, I haven't seen MI8 yet. I'm going to wait till a copy goes on the seas at this point, because it's just been out for so long at this point. So there might as well just wait, but I can assume it's probably gonna just be better. Maybe not plot wise, but just there's gonna be better moments, and it's probably got better writing. Just from what I can think, plot wise. Because I'm just gonna be real, the plot is definitely the weakest thing in this movie. Wasting Norman Reedus. I like that they respected John Wick, and the lore stuff was cool. Going to another Continental was kind of cool. But to be honest, it almost, I'll say this, it doesn't necessarily need to exist. And I'm starting to feel that maybe we gotta stop with the John Wick spinoffs. I know they're doing a Kane spinoff with Donnie Yen's character from John Wick 4. But the thing with that, at least, I guess you could say more people know Donnie Yen, and maybe they'll go see it just because, it's a Donnie Yen movie. It could be like an R-rated It Man in a way, where you'll be It Man, but he's going to be killing people. It's the only difference. But, so there's that aspect about it that might sell a bit better. But honestly, maybe after that, no more John Wick spinoffs. Let's let John Wick be about John Wick, and I'm starting to think that's what people want. I don't think people want this whole universe thing. I think people are tired of the universe stuff. Like, if you're gonna do this universe thing, just center it around one person. Like, what made the 4 John Wicks work, because it was the universe, there was a world. But at this point, people want to just focus on John Wick, and I think that's just it. It's the same thing that happened with Furiosa. I have not seen Furiosa, or I've only seen like the last maybe 20 minutes of the movie, so I can't really legitimately give an opinion. The last 20 minutes was whatever, it didn't do anything for me, but I'm not going to sit here and say it's a bad movie, because I haven't seen it all the way through. So, and I have, to be honest, I have no interest in seeing it, because I don't even like Fury Road as a Mad Max movie. So, it's the same deal there. People want just Mad Max, and I think, unfortunately, I think the same thing happened here. I think people just want John Wick, and trying to make a whole world around even the Continental, which, this is way better than the Continental show. I will say that. This shit's on that show. But still, I think people are just, maybe don't want a John Wick world. They want just John Wick. If you're going to do these movies, just do it with John Wick. So, if Kane flops, that's going to be the bigger sign right there that, you guys got to stop trying to do these spinoffs. Not everything needs to be a cinematic universe. Not everything needs a spinoff. Not everything, like Jurassic Park, Star Wars, I'll say DC and Marvel to an extent, you could do spinoffs, because those franchises, in a way, they're not just built on one singular character. Like Star Wars, to an extent, they were built on characters, but the world is so vast and big, you could do stories about other characters, and you can get away with it. Same with Jurassic Park. You don't necessarily have to do a Jurassic Park film with like your Ian Malcolms, your Alan Grants, your Ellie Sattlers, or Even your Owen Grady's and Claire's. You could do a Jurassic Park film that's in the Park world with different characters, and you can do it at different times too. Same with like Alien and Predator. Those, to an extent, you can just do whatever you want with those because they're not necessarily beholden to the certain characters. So you could do a Predator for the. I mean, hell, we did a Predator film without Arnold. It was called Predator 2, and it did well. So those kind of franchise, you can get away with doing a bunch of spin-offs that's not necessarily tied to the main story. But John Wick, we come for the man. We're watching for John Wick. And yeah, he's in this movie, but I still fundamentally think that this world doesn't need a spin-off. And if you're going to do a spin-off show. Where that's where you can expand on the world. Granted, they fucked it up with the Continental, but still. In a perfect world, let's say they did not fuck up the Continental. That's where you do the world building. Trying to do it in a movie, I just don't think works. Because to me, the movie world for John Wick is John Wick himself. So if he's not involved, and yeah, he's in this movie, but he's in the last, 10 minutes, really. And he has some cool scenes, but, yeah. So I guess we can start getting into the plot now. And the one thing I didn't love the rip-off club scene they did, because there's a scene in the club where Eve fights some people, and the problem I had with it, it was clearly trying to be the club scene from John Wick 1, and it just did not hit the same. It's not like, I'll say they didn't overtly rip it off, but you could tell they were going for that feel, and it just didn't. I didn't think it was needed. I think it shouldn't have been a club. It should have been her at a party. And if you've seen the movie Point of No Return with Bridget Fonda, there's a scene where she goes to it's like some kind of fancy party, and she has to pose as somebody to try to get a target. And I wanted more stuff like that. Instead of, let's have a scene at a club because, it's so we can call back to the first one, which I felt was unnecessary. It felt kind of forced. It felt like, guys, remember the club scene from John Wick 1? I'm like, I didn't need another one of that. Because it's just gonna, let's be real, inherently, it's gonna be inferior just because that club scene in that first film. And I'm not even going to say it. Even in some of the later John Wick films, you could tell they try to recreate it. Granted, I think the best way they did it was in John Wick 4. That club scene where he finally faces off against Scott Adkins, that was good. No, it wasn't as good as the first movie, but it was still good. But those two scenes kind of guys, no more club scenes. You're not going to live up to that level. And especially in a spin-off film. Where it's not going to hit the same because it's just John Wick's not in the club. But anyways, let's get into this movie. Sorry about that. I'm trying to make sure you do not get any of that flair. But so the movie starts basically. We see Eve as a kid with her father, who has the tattoos from the higher table, like he's a mad assassin. And then Gabriel Byrne's people arrive, and we get a cool opening action scene where his father's killing some of those guys, trying to protect his daughter, hides his daughter in a secret kind of, the secret room behind the bookcase kind of thing. He has that. But unfortunately, he ends up kind of getting captured and then basically killed. And she sees it, and she wants revenge. And this is where she meets Winston. I think that part of the movie, I felt went too quick. And there's a part, it's a mix. Because I'm happy they went by it, at least it wasn't okay, we don't have to spend forever on her being a kid. But maybe another I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, we could have seen her be a kid and see the after effects of, her father's death and stuff, and seeing her maybe come up, and then there's a scene where we eventually, maybe there's a scene where she's punching the heavy bag as a kid, and then it gradually just, she ages up, and then you see her, like, you hit it, she hits it slow and is scared, and then eventually ages her up and she's like hitting it no problem. I think that would have been a better way to introduce her as an adult than what they did here, because it felt very jarring. This is okay. She meets Winston already. Then he takes her to the places where she meets the ballerina, the main lady, Angelica Houston's character, which was cool seeing her. And I will give this movie this. It clearly did try to look like this is set during John Wick 3. They try to make it look like John Wick 3, straight up. I will give them that. At least they try to aesthetically make it look like, because John Wick 3 and 4, you could clearly, there's still like, well, because obviously how long the gap, a little bit of a gap there was between John Wick 3 and 4. Because 2 and 3 were only like 2 years. Because I think 2 was 2017, 3 was 2019, and 4 was 2023. So it was it was like a 4-year gap there. So obviously the camera work's going to look a little bit sharper and better, just even within 4 years. So yeah, you could tell a difference in quality. So they try to make this one look like definitely more like John Wick 3. So I do like that. But, so yeah, she meets John Wick as a kid. So that was cool. So that's like one of the scenes you see Keanu. And then you see him in the end when he faces off against her. Then we see her training as an adult. And this is where you get the speech, which you saw in the trailers, where her teacher was like, you gotta fight like a girl. You gotta fight differently. You gotta cheat. You gotta use your environment. And I'm gonna say this again. I respect that they try to point this out, because too many movies, these female-led action movies, they'll get these twig women, I'm sorry, I hate to say it like this, but that are twigs, really skinny, that I'm supposed to buy, that are throwing around a bunch of dudes. At least Atomic Blonde at least explained it, and she want the same deal. She used her environment. She wasn't just straight up using her hands. But there's too many of them that they'll just, like G20 was the worst one with this. There's just scenes, and I'll give this, the only difference, I will say Viola Davis isn't some skinny chick. She does have muscle, but I'm still supposed to believe she's beating up Brock Lesnar-sized guys. Sure. So at least in this one, she's using more weapons. She's going for the nut. She's using, like, there's a scene where she crushes a guy's arm with a car door. Like, she's using her environment. So I like that this movie did that. Like, even her training scenes. Outside of the one scene where she's actually training, like, martial arts and she's fighting the guy. During, like, the shooting, like, they're kind of, I think it was, like, paintball kind of thing. They were shooting paintballs at each other, basically. She was using her gun. She was using her environment. And I do like, too, she was fighting women, because too many of the other ones become a power fantasy, clearly, for some of these weirdo feminist types that just make these movies that want to have these really small girls. There's a reason they do it like this. Get these small girls to beat up all these dudes, and it's always just dudes. You're telling me these bad guy organizations, they have no female fighters? Even though in better movies they have some. So I like that they're having her fight girls too. It's clearly not some dumb feminist fantasy. They're making it realistic, because in John Wick, it's meant to, even in the first one, there are female assassins. So you're going to tell me she's just going to be fighting only guys the whole time? Especially later on, there's this whole cult of assassins that live in this town. You're telling me they're all guys. Sure. So I like that they do that. I hate pointing out stuff like that, because it shouldn't necessarily be a positive, but here we are. Just the environment we're in right now. But I am really enjoying. I just wish maybe the movie gave her more to do, character-wise, and gave her more of a scene to show off her charisma. That's why I was saying, like, there should have been a party scene, because that kind of scene could have really showed off more of her personality and her charisma. And because I think Anna de Armas has it. I've seen her in interviews, and she's very, in a weird way, charismatic. And I just felt like they don't let her show it in this movie. They want to show her more being like, and it's not like I'm complaining about, like, oh, she's a physically capable woman, but it's more about, like, oh, she can fight and she can use guns. I felt like, and she just wants revenge. I felt like we needed more. Because like, look at The Crow. That's a revenge story. But we know the little we know. But we have Eric Draven has a character. He's not just I want revenge and I want to kill people. That's I mean, guy example. It's one of the reasons I really did not like fucking um Skyfall. Not Skyfall. Fucking Quantum of Solace. That's the one I was thinking of. Quantum of Solace, the Bond film, because to me, Bond in that movie wasn't Bond. He was just I want revenge, man. No other characteristic. They didn't even really let him show off his Bond charm. And I wanted something like that for her character in this movie to let her show off her personality more instead of just I want revenge. Because to me, when you have movies like that, okay, you'll get some cool action scenes, but what else is there with your character? There, having wanting revenge isn't just inherent. That's not a character because that's just a human trait. You get fucked over, someone kills your family, your dog, your whatever, your friend, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, whatever. You're gonna want revenge. That's just a human trait that all of us have inherently. So I don't see that as a character. Not really. That's not a character at all, to be honest with you. That's just something we all have. Like John Wick had a character. Like, the way he was into cars. There's little things. And I maybe wanted that for her character in this movie. So that's also why I have to kind of bring it down to a 6.5 the more I think about it. I think she could have had more character moments. Like, nothing wrong with wanting revenge, because that is a characteristic that we all have, and that's a big reason why revenge movies are just popular, is a popular genre, because it's one of the easiest genres to get people on. Generally, if you do them right, get people on the main character's side. They killed someone they know. Like, in John Wick 1, it was the dog, but the Crow, what they did to Shelley, you wanted those guys to fucking get theirs. And I think that was the other problem. The movie, this isn't as bad, but I thought the Crow reboot had the same problem. Obviously, way worse than this movie, but I even think this movie had a little bit the same problem. I didn't feel in that sense for Eve. I didn't feel like I want her to get her revenge. I'm gonna be honest. It was just kind of by the numbers. Gabriel Byrne killed her dad, and then it's like, okay, now she wants revenge. But I'm not like, I'm invested in her revenge journey. I want her to get him. There's not one, be real, not one moment in this movie was I like, I want to get Gabriel Byrne. I want him to die. I don't, no, not at all. I felt like they could have, maybe they should have did more with their dad, given him, I'm not saying, I guess this would have to extend the movie a bit, but I needed something more. Like maybe Gabriel Byrne was a friend of her dad's, and I think he was, but the movie did not really do a good job of highlighting that. He should have been, because I think it was like he's someone who worked. What the fuck? Jesus Christ. Anyway, I don't know what the fuck that was, but like I needed more personal reasons to be invested in wanting him to die, because I like in these movies want to feel like I'm there, like I want this motherfucker to get his, like the people in the Crow, the original, the actual Crow movie, you wanted those guys who killed Shelley to get theirs. In John Wick 1, you wanted that fucking kid to die because of what he did to the dog and his people to die. That's an example of a good revenge story where you want the villain to get theirs, and I just did not feel that in this movie. And I think, as I was saying, like I wanted more for Gabriel Byrne's character. Like maybe they should have made it like him and his dad were good friends, and he fucked him over, he sold him out or something. In the comics, Gabriel Wynn had Spawn killed, and that's how he became Spawn. Yeah, Al Simmons. He got Al Simmons killed, and even the animated series showed that he wanted Wynn to get his. It was like, this motherfucker. I don't feel that. I didn't feel that at all in this movie. And it's unfortunate because I think Gabriel Byrne could have really given a performance like that if this it didn't let him. I think they went too by the numbers. They were focused on let's just have a revenge story, but not overcomplicate it. But in theory, I have no problem with you wanting to keep it simple. But I think this is the where you take it simple on the negative side, where you made it too simple to the point you could have actually had more here. I'm not saying more to where you have to overcomplicate it. You could have still kept it simple, but there needed more. I wanted Gabriel Byrne. This is just how I feel in general. If you're gonna do a revenge movie, I want the person or like the villain that the hero's journey to get their revenge. You want basically what the hero wants. You want that revenge too. In a weird way, it almost feels like you got fucked over. Like, 'cause you could put yourself in that position, and inherently you can. Her dad dying, but I also felt like there was not enough like moments between her and her dad. Like there were a bit, but it was like right before he's about to fucking die. It was just like I think maybe that opening scene maybe it should have been extended a bit. Like we needed more build up to her dad dying, and maybe show quick. I think that's the other thing. Maybe the movie should have thrown. And this is the one time I'm usually not throughout flashbacks because sometimes flashbacks can be annoying. This is the one time I'm like maybe there should have been like there's a thing like there is a scene that's kind of like that because I think he gave her like a snow globe kind of thing, and she remembers that her dad gave it to her. I wanted more scenes like that throughout the film, and but don't spam them, but just do them enough to where it's like now you can understand her reasons for wanting her to get Gabriel. Because I felt like the movie does not do that. It was just too by the numbers to where it's just like okay, I'm just basically waiting for her to get her revenge, but I'm not uber invested. It's like fun example, wrestling. You want the wrestler who got fucked over by the heel to get their revenge, just inherently, especially if the story's told well. It's the same thing there. And I just felt like I didn't feel that in this movie at all. And Gabriel Byrne, like I said, I really feel like he could play that role, and they just did not let him. I don't know if they just did not want to overcomplicate the plot, or did reshoots change things, or whatever, but so I'll just jump ahead to our first action scene where she goes to the club and confronts a guy who's like harassing a woman. And yeah, this is where we get the shootout, which I thought this fight scene was pretty cool. I just didn't love that it was in a club. I just felt like we were just trying to call back to the club from the first movie when it was just unnecessary. The John Wick sequels to an extent can get away with it because it's John Wick's tied to the character, so it's like fine. I can accept it. But when it's somebody else doing it, that's when it's really, really feels like okay, now you're just doing it just to have the club scene in all of them, and it just feels like now we're just ticking a box. And I don't want to ever feel like we're just ticking a box just to have that scene. We feel like we gotta have a club scene in the movie. Um, I really did like I said, they really highlighted she was kicking dudes in the nuts, hitting, stuff over there, using her gun. There was a fight outside where she used the car, like the car door, to break his arm and then shoot him in the head. Like, I like stuff like that. So, Gabriel Byrne now is trying to talk to Angelica Houston's character and ask can he call her off, and then I guess we'll just jump ahead to the title because the movie really there's not a lot of down moments in the movie really. Like she goes like it this is I guess this could be to an extent an issue because I'm all for movies having, I guess you want to use the Jacob Fatu quote, all gas no brakes, but sometimes you do gotta have, even in an action film, unless you're doing something like Crank where the plot inherently you can't have a down moment because the character's gonna die if he stops. But sometimes for me, even in action movies, you gotta have a down, like T2, one of my favorite action movies of all time. There's down moments where the group's resetting. And that's also the reason you have to have those down moments, because that's where you can have the character work and, have the character stuff and the writing go into more of the character. Because that's what down moments are, because now they can have a conversation with somebody who gets some more lore or whatever, more about their character or whatever character. That's why I feel like you gotta have those scenes, even in an action, even Die Hard, had those moments. It wasn't just all action every scene. I think you gotta have, even in John Wick. John Wick 4 is probably one of the more heavy action ones, I would say. There was down moments in that movie. So I just feel like it was just weird, because it just felt like the down moments within the movie were just setting up the next. Sorry about that. They were setting up for the next action sequence, basically. Because then, she goes to get guns, and this is where people come. This is where you have the pretty cool chainsaw scene. Not chainsaw, but grenade scene where she blows up a bunch of people with grenades. That was cool. I did like that the gunshot boater was also fighting. So I thought that was cool. Then she goes to the town. And basically, she has to go through the town and try to get to Gabriel. And at this point, this is where they do send John Wick. And I'll admit, his entrance was pretty badass. The way he just gets off the bus. He has the slow walk. You have, the people there. Clearly, they know who he is. They're looking at him. But they know not to do anything because they know they're going to get fucked up. So they have, a look of, in a way, of respect. The only thing that just doesn't make sense is the timeline, because this is supposed to be during 3. Or I'm assuming this is after 3, and it shouldn't be because he's not injured. So it wouldn't be after 3. So this is during 3. So how is he here, but he's also being chased by other assassins? Whatever. You kind of have to, just disregard, logic like that out the window, because when you think about it, it makes no fucking sense. It really doesn't. It doesn't make sense if you fucking think about it. But I thought the action scenes here were really good. And this is where she does confront him, or he confronts her. They have a bit of a conversation. And I thought the fight here was pretty good. I like it wasn't too long. It wasn't too long either. Which is fine with me. Because I don't need the fight to be uber long. I just need, show off her skills. But ultimately, I like that she lost. I would have been pissed if, I would have been kind of mad if she just won, but I like that she lost. But she basically begs him, hey, I need to finish this mission, please. And he basically says, you got till 12 o'clock and I gotta do what I gotta do. So that's when he lets her finish her mission. And this is where we get a cool scene where she uses a flamethrower. So I thought that was pretty cool. Kills a bunch of people. She finally gets to Gabriel. I think his death was kind of anticlimactic. I think she just shoots him in the head. And then some more of his people show up, but then she gets saved by John. And then I think the movie... I'm trying to remember how the movie ends. I think it just kind of ends, basically. She got her mission done. I think it does leave... Oh, there's a scene where she meets up with Norman Reedus' character. The reason I barely talked about that is because he's barely in the movie. He's in it for 5 minutes, and then he gets killed, basically. And this is where she gets captured. She gets captured, twice. And, yeah. My issue with the movie is just a lot of the scenes are just set up for the action scenes, which I didn't really love. I'm not a fan of that. I feel like you do have to have a little bit of those quiet moments just so the movie can breathe, and so we can have the character moments in the movie. And I just felt like there wasn't enough of that, because I wanted more from I think Eve's character is fine, but she's nothing special in that sense, because they didn't give a lot about her character outside of she just wants revenge for her father's death. And I think not necessarily that's hollow, but that's all her character is. It's like I want more. So, and I felt like Anna de Armas is a good actress, and I wanted to see her to show more. And I felt like, and I don't think this is her fault. I think this is the fault of the director. And maybe Chad Stahelski should have just directed this movie. And I get it, he's about to do Highlander, so maybe that's why he couldn't do it. But the fact he had to come back and do some of the action scenes, but maybe Les Weissman shouldn't have been the one to direct her, because I felt like he didn't give her a lot to work with in the character sense, and really let her show off her acting. And I'm not saying she needs to be amazing acting, but I wanted her to show off more of like even just her personality and show more of her charisma. Like show her that she's a good assassin, that she's good, like, but she's also good with like showing her personality. Because the reason I say that, because that could help with her being an assassin. And I just felt like I didn't feel like I got a lot with her in this movie in that sense. She was just, I want revenge for my dad's death, and that's it. And on the opposite side, I didn't feel like we got enough with Gabriel Byrne as a villain. I wanted more of him, and I wanted in a way, I wanted her to feel for her vendetta, because in a good revenge story, you want the main character to get their revenge, and I just didn't feel that in this movie. It just felt like I was just waiting for the revenge to happen. You know? It was just like, okay, I'm waiting for her to kill him now. And I still think the movie was good, and the journey there was fine. It's just, I want to be invested in these kind of. I love revenge stories, especially well done revenge stories. I mean, like I brought up with wrestling. I love revenge stories in wrestling too. So it's just done well. I love a good revenge story, and I just think this one was just fine. I think it's the epitome of fine. But I just don't. I wanted more character stuff, more Norman Reedus. I wanted maybe Norman Reedus. She should have been like a friend of her dad's or something. Something like I wanted more from his character. He shouldn't have been in the film for 5. He should have probably been with her in that third act. Maybe he dies in the third act, but he should have been in. I don't know if they couldn't keep him for the whole time, like in the sense like maybe he was doing something else or he wanted more money, so they were like they're just gonna pay him for the time he had. I don't know. It was either way. They should have tried to find a way to get him more in the movie, because I think that hurt it too. Gabriel Byrne should have been a better villain, because I think he's a good actor, and I really felt like he didn't get to show it here. I guess that's more my negatives, but if positives, the action scenes are done well. I like that it respects John Wick. I love the theme that it really stuck to, that, you know, you have to cheat if you're a woman. I like that was a theme throughout the movie that they stuck to. They didn't, it's not like this thing, they say it, but then they don't show it at all. They say it, but then she's like throwing around dudes still and doing all that, the shit we always complain about in other movies. So I like that this time around they stick to it. They say it, but they're also showing it. It's a theme throughout the whole entire film. So, but anyway, I think that's all I really gotta say. This movie is like a 6.5 out of 10. I think there's some good in there. I would probably watch it again, but I'd probably only watch it if I'm gonna watch the other John Wick movies, and even then I'd have to be in the mood for it. But it's definitely the best John Wick spinoff so far. We'll see that Kane one, because there's a chance that could be really good if done well. But for now, this is definitely the best one. Fuck the Continental. Oh, I forgot to mention Sharon's in there. So it's always cool seeing Lance Reddick again. So it was at least cool to see that he got to play the character 2 more times before he unfortunately died, R.I.P. So at least he got to play the character 2 more times. You know, he's not in it long, but I like that Winston was in it too. And yeah, it's a decent movie. It's just not. I wanted more from the plot a little bit, and definitely more Norman Reedus, and do better with Gabriel Byrne, and wanted more from Eve's character a bit. But yeah, I overall think it's a decent movie. I just don't think you need a rush to see it in theaters. You could just wait for streaming, to be honest, and it'll be fine. So, anyways, guys, I'm gonna wrap it here. I do not know if we're streaming Saturday for Pin Down, but I think we should be, but I don't know yet. I'll keep y'all posted on that. But I'm gonna be reviewing Bring Her Back tomorrow, which that's gonna be fun because I really enjoyed that movie. That movie is probably my favorite horror movie of the year so far. Like objectively, like probably subjectively right now is probably, I'm gonna be honest, probably Final Destination, but objectively it's this movie. This movie, there's a couple scenes that actually unnerved me, and I'm usually not like one who gets unnerved by most horror movies, especially these days. So this one really did it, and made by guys who did Talk to Me, which was also really good. So, and I thought they delivered here. So well, it'll be fun to talk about that. So I'll be trying to talk about that tomorrow. I'm gunning for, but yeah, guys. But other than that, guys, subscribe to Pin Down Podcast. I'll talk to y'all later for my Bring Her Back review. Peace.